Most men try to win her attention. They chase it, feed it, and worship it. And in the end, they drown in their own effort. But the truth is simpler. The man who wins her isn't the one she sees the most. It's the one she can't stop feeling when he's not there. That's the real game. Not attraction, not validation. Presence. Not the kind you fake with confidence quotes or charm tricks. The kind that lingers in her mind long after you've gone silent. The kind that makes her heart race when your name appears on her screen and ache when it doesn't. See, most men think love is earned through kindness, through doing more, giving more, being available more. But here's the uncomfortable truth. What is always there loses its value. Love without contrast turns invisible. The man who never pulls back teaches her to stop feeling. You don't become unforgettable by being perfect. You become unforgettable by being felt. And that feeling is born in tension, not comfort. Because the moment she realizes she can't fully predict you, you become magnetic. And that's when her mind starts to orbit yours. It's not manipulation, it's psychology. A woman doesn't fall for what she understands. She falls for what she can't stop trying to understand. So stop trying to be liked. Stop trying to impress. Stop trying to make her believe you're enough. Become the man who doesn't explain. The man whose silence feels heavier than another man's speech. The man whose boundaries are quiet but unbreakable. Because when she senses that you can walk away without warning, without anger, without need, her nervous system wakes up. That's when attraction mutates into obsession. Not because you gave her everything she wanted, but because you showed her you'll give nothing if your respect isn't met. You don't dominate her through control. You dominate her through self-possession, through restraint, through stillness. Remember this, the loudest man gets ignored, but the quiet man who knows his worth is remembered in every silence that follows. That's not cruelty, that's gravity. And gravity doesn't chase, it pulls. There's a truth most men never dare to face. Love inspires loyalty, but fear sustains respect. Machiavelli didn't write that to sound cruel. He wrote it because he understood something deeper about human nature, that love without fear becomes comfort, and comfort breeds carelessness. Watch closely. When a man gives her endless affection, when he opens every door, answers every text, forgives every mistake, she doesn't fall deeper. She drifts. Because love that costs nothing eventually feels like nothing. But the man who carries a quiet edge, the one she knows she could lose if she crosses the line, he doesn't need to demand respect. He radiates it. That's the paradox. She will adore the man who gives her warmth, but she will chase the man who could take it away. And it's not fear of punishment. It's fear of absence. The kind of absence that says, if you ever mistake my silence for weakness, you'll learn it was a warning. This isn't about yelling or threats or emotional games. That's what weak men do when they have no real power. True dominance is quiet. It's the kind of stillness that makes her question herself before she disrespects you. When you have boundaries she can feel without you saying a word. You've already won the frame. She doesn't fear you. She fears losing access to a man who doesn't flinch, doesn't beg, doesn't need. That's not intimidation. That's control through calm. Because when a woman knows you won't break your own code to keep her, you stop being another man. You become a force, something she can't quite define, but can't forget either. So yes, love her. But let her feel that if respect ever dies, love dies with it. That's the kind of balance that keeps desire alive long after words fade. Not the warmth of a man who gives endlessly, but the weight of a man who can walk away in silence and mean it. And when she realizes that, when she senses that your peace is more valuable than her attention, the game ends. Because the one thing every woman fears losing is the man who doesn't need her approval to feel whole. That's not cruelty. That's emotional law. And only the men who understand that difference ever stop being forgotten. There's a harsh truth most men never recover from. The world doesn't reward what's real, it rewards what's seen. You can be genuine, loyal, and full of depth, but if your presence doesn't command emotion, no one will ever feel your worth. Machiavelli said it plainly. It is not necessary to be good, only to appear so. At first it sounds deceptive, but look deeper. It's not about faking virtue. It's about framing power. You could have the best intentions, but if your energy reads as uncertain, if your tone trembles when you speak truth, you'll be dismissed before you finish your sentence. Because humans don't respond to what's true, they respond to what feels true. Perception beats proof, every time. She doesn't study your words. She studies your rhythm, your walk, the pause before you answer, the way your gaze doesn't flicker when she tests your patience. You think she's listening to you. She's actually measuring you. Attraction doesn't start with facts. It starts with feeling. And that feeling is dictated by one silent question. Does this man lead himself? So master the image, not the costume, not the act, the energy. When you're unsure, still stand like a man who knows. When you're angry, speak like a man who controls fire, not one who's consumed by it. When you want to chase, do nothing, because motion is weakness when your presence is already power. Stillness is the ultimate flex. Mystery is the ultimate magnet. Show 80% of who you are. Hide the rest behind calm eyes, because what she imagines will always outweigh what you reveal. Let her fill in the blanks. Let her curiosity do the chasing. You don't need to explain your silence. You don't need to prove your worth. You need to shape your image, the way a sculptor shapes marble, by removing everything that doesn't belong. Because clarity doesn't attract, contrast does. And when you stop broadcasting everything you are, you stop being ordinary. You start becoming a mystery. And mystery is the currency of desire. So remember this: a man who's too easy to read becomes easy to forget. But the man who reveals just enough to be felt, yet never enough to be understood, becomes legend. In a world obsessed with attention, true power isn't being seen by everyone. It's being remembered by the right one, long after you've vanished. That's not pretending. That's presence with precision. Every woman will test you, not because she hates you, but because she needs to know if you'll break. It's not an attack. It's instinct. Her mind pushes to find the edge, to see if you're real or just another mask. She'll pull close, then go cold. She'll say one thing and mean another. She'll laugh, then go silent. It's not confusion. It's calibration. She's scanning for weakness. Most men panic when this happens. They over-explain, over-text, over-prove. They start playing defense in a game they never understood. But centuries ago, Machiavelli whispered the blueprint. A great man must be both a lion and a fox. The lion commands fear. The fox commands strategy. Together they command respect. Be only the lion. Too proud, too forceful, and she'll provoke you. She'll test your temper, and when you snap, she'll know you're ruled by emotion. Your strength will look like noise. Be only the fox. Too clever, too calculating, and she'll feel your charm, but she won't trust you to lead. Because cleverness without fire feels hollow. But when you are both, when your silence carries threat and your words carry control, you stop being predictable. And unpredictability is the root of obsession. When she cries, don't crumble. When she withdraws, don't chase. When she tests, don't explain. Be the fox. Observe, calculate, remain calm. Let her storm crash against your stillness. And when she crosses a line, when she forgets who she's speaking to, be the lion. Not with shouting, not with anger, with presence. A look, a pause, a tone that says, that's far enough. No drama, no debate. Just the kind of silence that corrects her more than any lecture could. Because power isn't loud. It's quiet certainty that doesn't need validation. She'll try to decode you, test you, understand you, but she won't. And that tension will tie her thoughts to you like a thread she can't cut. That's not manipulation. That's discipline in motion. The lion protects your respect. The fox protects your peace. One enforces your boundaries. The other guards your strategy. And when they live inside you as one, you don't chase control. You become it. Because true power isn't dominance over her. It's dominion over yourself. And when a man rules himself, no test can break him. No silence can shake him. No woman can forget him. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just whispers one sentence that she can't stop replaying. Machiavelli's oldest law was simple: divide and conquer. But this isn't just for empires, it's for minds. You don't control a woman by fighting her. You don't dominate her by shouting louder. You control her by creating contrast, by introducing a fracture between what she believes and what she suddenly begins to feel. Because certainty is safety, and safety kills curiosity. When a woman feels certain, she's calm, stable, predictable. But when she's curious, when she's conflicted, her emotions stay open. And that's where your power lives. You don't argue with her worldview. You seed doubt inside it. You tap the wall once and let it echo. She says, "I don't like controlling men." You smile, calm. Maybe you've just never met one who doesn't need control to lead. That one line doesn't sound like much, but it splits her perception. It creates a quiet crack in the mirror. And once that mirror breaks, she'll never see the reflection the same again. She won't admit it, but she'll start replaying the moment. What did he mean? Why did that feel different? Why can't I stop thinking about it? And that's the secret. You don't need to win the conversation. You just need to haunt it. While other men rush to agree, you let silence build tension. Because tension is the root of fascination. She'll argue with herself, defend her ideas, but her subconscious will keep circling back to you. The man who made her question what she thought she knew. This isn't manipulation. It's psychological craftsmanship. You're not breaking her down. You're waking her up. You're not forcing her to follow. You're pulling her into your gravity. Because when she starts to debate you in her own mind, you've already won. She doesn't know it yet, but she's thinking in your language now. Your words are the voice in her head. Your silence is the sound between her thoughts. That's not charm. That's influence. The kind that doesn't need attention to exist, because it grows in her absence. Remember, the most powerful man doesn't fight resistance. He creates division inside it. He makes her curious enough to destroy her own certainty. And once doubt lives inside her, you never need to push again. Because what she questions, she can't forget. And what she can't forget, she starts to crave. Every strong man learns this truth the hard way. Your emotions will either serve you or sabotage you, and the way you respond in silence will always speak louder than what you say in anger. Power isn't in reaction, it's in restraint. Because anyone can explode when disrespected. Anyone can withdraw when ignored. But very few can hold their ground with calm certainty and make silence feel like a verdict. That's the essence of consequence. You don't shout to prove a point. You remove your energy and let absence do the talking. When someone crosses your line, you don't negotiate your worth. You show it by stepping back, clean and composed. No chaos, no dramatics. Just stillness that says, "You'll feel this distance more than any speech could." Because respect doesn't live in noise. It lives in the spaces where your presence used to be. But here's the balance. The moment you build consequence, you must also build reward. Not the fake, performative kind. Real reward is presence. Your time, your energy, your focus. Given slowly, earned genuinely. When people meet your boundaries with respect, you give warmth, acknowledgement, depth, but never all at once. You let them earn pieces of you like a rare language, revealed only through trust. That rhythm, measured distance and deliberate reward, creates an emotional architecture around you. People feel your boundaries before they hear them. They sense your value without you advertising it. You don't have to say, "I'm different." They'll know, because your reactions don't look like anyone else's. It's not cruelty, it's clarity. The world teaches chaos. Overreact, overshare, overgive. But real power comes from moving with rhythm. Pull back when you're taken for granted. Lean in when respect is earned. Because when your energy becomes a mirror, reflecting only what's given with intention, you stop attracting confusion and start commanding gravity. So remember this: discipline is not coldness. It's devotion to your own worth. And every person who encounters that stillness will either rise to meet it or quietly fade away, knowing they stood in the presence of someone who doesn't beg to be understood. He simply is. Most people think power is measured by how loud you are when you're seen. But real power is measured by the weight of your absence. Anyone can fill a room with words. Very few can leave a silence that others feel hours after they've gone. That silence isn't emptiness, it's gravity, the proof that your energy carried meaning. Because when you withdraw with purpose, you teach without speaking. Absence used wisely resets perception. It breaks patterns that noise can't touch. When you stop explaining, people start reflecting. When you stop chasing, they start remembering. You're not ignoring them. You're letting the dust of constant noise settle so your value can become visible again. Here's the truth. Presence loses impact without contrast. Attention given endlessly turns invisible. But when you choose distance, deliberately, calmly, your silence reframes the story. They begin to wonder, what changed? Did I take something for granted? Was I even paying attention? And that wondering isn't about control, it's about awareness. Your absence becomes a mirror. It shows others exactly what they brought and what they didn't. But timing is everything. If you vanish to punish, it's immaturity. If you step back to realign your center, it's mastery. Because the point of space isn't to create fear, it's to protect your peace, to give your presence room to mean something again. When you return, return differently. No resentment, no edge, just a quiet strength that says, I know what I offer, and I choose when to offer it. That's the kind of absence that turns into memory, the kind that makes others notice their own noise. Remember, a man ruled by reaction dissolves into the crowd. A man ruled by intention shapes it. So use absence not as punishment, but as punctuation. Let it separate the ordinary from the sacred. Because when you learn to step away without bitterness, you prove that your value doesn't depend on constant visibility. You become the echo instead of the shout, and echoes last longer. Every man leaves a trace. Most fade the moment they exit a room. A few become ghosts that never leave, not because they haunted others, but because they awakened something sleeping inside them. That's what it means to be a turning point. Not the villain, not the savior. The moment when someone finally sees themselves differently because you existed. The goal was never control. It was clarity. To mirror back the truth people avoid until they meet someone who won't. You don't need to lecture. You don't need to fix. You just hold your ground so firmly that their chaos collapses in reflection. It's unsettling, but it's also healing. Because real presence doesn't make people comfortable, it makes them conscious. Maybe you were the first person who didn't argue, the first who didn't bend, the first who let silence do the talking, and that silence cracked their illusions wide open. That's when you stop being a person and become a memory. The internal shift they'll compare every moment to afterward. They might move on. They might build new stories. But in their quiet moments, when life tests them again, your energy will resurface. Not as nostalgia, but as the blueprint for strength. Because they don't remember you. They remember who they became in your presence. That's legacy. Not wealth, not power, but the invisible transformation you leave behind. Machiavelli understood this long before psychology gave it names. The one who shapes perception shapes destiny. And destiny begins in the smallest exchanges. A look, a pause, a word spoken without effort. When you live with that awareness, you stop chasing outcomes. You start designing them. Through the energy you hold, through the example you embody. Be the man who doesn't just enter stories, he rewrites them. Not through dominance, but through depth. Because the rarest kind of influence is the kind that survives your absence. There comes a point where noise no longer tempts you, where arguments sound hollow and the need to prove anything dies quietly in your chest. That's the threshold every disciplined mind eventually reaches. The place beyond reaction, beyond validation, beyond control. It's called stillness, not passivity, not detachment, but the kind of calm that bends the room without raising a hand. You see it in warriors before battle, in leaders who speak last, in men who know that every movement costs energy, so they only move when it matters. Stillness is not the absence of power, it's the storage of it. Every time you refuse to chase chaos, you collect energy. Every time you hold silence instead of defending yourself, you sharpen presence. And every time you act only when aligned, you teach the world one truth. This man cannot be moved by impulse. People feel that before they understand it. They lower their voice around you. They measure their words. They sense that your attention is earned, not owed. That's command, not from fear, from frequency. Because authority isn't about force, it's about control of internal motion. When you master your own noise, the world sinks to your rhythm. So stop trying to win every exchange. Stop trying to explain what calm people already see. Power isn't declared, it's perceived. Let others rush to fill silence. Let them reveal their anxiety and speed. You stay deliberate. You stay slow. Because speed belongs to panic. Stillness belongs to kings. When you move, move with purpose. When you speak, let every word feel like a decision already made. And when you fall silent again, let that silence feel earned. That's the highest tier of presence. Not the performer, not the manipulator, the architect. The man who understands that leadership begins where emotion ends. So carry your boundaries like armor, not weapons. Carry your voice like thunder that rarely speaks. And carry your stillness like a crown. Unspoken, unshakable, undeniable. Because in the end, every game, every strategy, every shadow trick collapses into this one truth. The man who controls himself controls everything around him. That's not mystery, that's mastery. There will come a day when you stop trying to be understood, when you stop performing for attention and start existing as proof. That's when everything changes, because real strength doesn't announce itself. It doesn't scream, chase, or plead to be seen. It simply is, unmoved, undeniable, and quietly commanding. You'll feel it the first time you walk away with peace instead of anger, the first time your silence becomes the lesson, the first time you choose calm over chaos and realize you didn't lose them. You found yourself. That's the point where presence becomes power, where your stillness turns magnetic, where your absence teaches louder than your voice ever could. And from that moment on, you'll never have to demand respect again, because your energy will speak it for you.